let's say the week of the 19th of February. We get it in that Monday on February 19th, then that gives us more than 15-day notice before the meeting.
19th, you said, of February?
February 19th, if we put it in
that week.
That week, then that gives us 1, 2, it gives us 3 weeks.
So we have to go from the March 14th date, though, don't we, or no? From the hearing date?
Backwards. We have to give 15 days notice of that hearing of the 14th. So we have to have it in the week before that. So if we put it in the week of February 19th, that gives us more than 15 days.
I'm just asking. I don't have a calendar in front of me. That's my right.
So, I think Melissa and I on the phone, we talked about the township board, and I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. To go out for the 63-day review period, the township board has to approve the draft for public review. So did that happen?
No,
No,
because back when they did that, the board came up with grammatical stuff to get changed and the other stuff to get changed, and they never did anything with that after that.
Okay.
I brought it to their attention, it was not addressed.
Okay, so then that has to happen first. I thought, sorry, I didn't understand.
So now it's not before
Before
January.
the 63 days?
Yeah.
To go out for the public review, it has to be.
They won't meet now until the 8th of
The 8th?
Yeah, January.
So then we're in the,
unless you guys somehow will meeting beforehand, but boy, that's.
Okay, yeah, we won't have a 15-day window by the time they approve it.
Go from the 8th to the 31st is 23.
52 to the beginning of March. 10 days, yeah, 63, yeah.
51 and 14, that would get us 51 and 14.
50, how many more days we got?
Well, we would have
From
1, 2,
the
3,
9th.
22 in January, 29 in February,
Okay, so that's 51.
and then 14.
It's 65, yep.
Should be the
So-
12th, right?
12th of
March.
14th of March.
The 12th is the end of the 63-day review.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
12,
right. Would be
So
the
if
end of
you're on the
63
14th
days.
for the hearing, then you're good.
if they do it in January, we're good.
Okay. So we can still have the meeting on the 14th, back up to, there again, to that week of, the last week of February, to make our 15-day notice, and we would still have enough time for the 63 days.
61, 62, 63, 60. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, well, I'm
Yeah,
going to count
I know.
it each day,
Yeah,
just to be
I added
sure.
up 3 times too, it's like just to make sure.
So
Yeah.
the 60, so the board meets on January 8th. We would put it out to the communities
January.
January 9th.
Right.
The review period would end March 12th. And your meeting is March 14th.
Right. And if we put it in the paper no later than the 26th of February, preferably the week before, that gives us our more than 15 days notice.
If we did it in the week, like you said, the week of the 19th, which
Right.
would actually get it
On
in the
Thursday.
paper on the 21st, they come out on Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay.
So,
Let's do that, yeah. So, February 19th, notice.
we have to publish the
after the meeting on the 8th, you'll let me know.
Yes.
Okay.
Jen or Jan? Jen, okay.
But if you want to be formal, it's Jennifer. Either way, but nobody calls me that, so.
Only if you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Just didn't get the whole name.
So you've been in trouble ever since I contacted you? No.
Every time you call, I'm in trouble.
Okay. All right.
All right, so that's the plan for the master plan.
We're good on that.
Okay.
So, there has been some discussion about short-term rentals. What are your thoughts? What do you have from other?
So, it's my understanding that the zoning is passed for short-term rentals, and now you're looking at how to manage them, right?
No, it's not passed for short-term
No,
rentals.
we don't have any, no
What
zoning
is
for.
this?
That was multi-dwellings on a single parcel of land.
That's what it started out as cabin, court, and
Uh-huh.
then got to be tourist dwelling, so it's the same thing, multiple buildings on a C1.
Got it.
So which will be, used for short-term rentals. So some people have expressed an interest to see what other people have as far as short-term rental ordinances.
For zoning or for general ordinances?
Pardon?
For zoning or for general ordinances?
General ordinance.
So,
Because some of the ones out here, I know down in your section, some of the subdivisions have deed restrictions as far as use of the property. So the deeds already cover that issue. But because of these things, now some questions have been brought up. We don't know what we want to do, just what do other people do and what are options.
so
That's where we're at.
this is an example that we've written, and I haven't changed it at all for Kilcullen, except for making it a little bit more general. That is from one of our other townships that has short-term rentals. This is the general ordinance police power. It talks about a licensing procedure, what they can and can't do in those short-term rentals, the occupancy, how you as a township would manage it, the structure that you would employ if there are issues. So, this is for you to look at. I'm not saying this is what you have to do, it's
Okay.
just an example.
'Cause that's kind of how we came up with the other one. We got, an example of some ordinances from another township. And, that's
Good.
that's
That's
what
one
we
for you.
Pat,
Yeah,
so-
I want you to have.
Okay, I'll get that one.
Okay, you'll make another
Yeah.
one.
I'll use it now.
Well, I want you to have one in the packet.
Thank you.
So this obviously
If there's a spare.
has definitions in it that don't apply to your ordinance because it's not written for your ordinance, it's written for someone else's ordinance. So that would need to be changed if this is the route you wanted to go. Flip to page 3, section 4, it's where it kind of skips past the initial purpose and everything and gets into the actual process. So it talks about, this one uses a licensing procedure where they would get a license through the township depending on however long you would like it to be. In this case, the ordinance is every 2 years. You don't have to do 2 years. talks about all of the things that would require a license, the application information they would need to fill out. Section 5 are exceptions, so it wouldn't apply to families, house sitting, dwelling, estates. And then, in this case, they also have one for stays that are rented on a short-term basis. You, again, don't have to have that. And then section 6 goes into regulations about short-term rentals. So this is, you need to have, a local agent, contact information, address requirements. There are rules for parking, there are rules for occupancy, smoke detectors, recycling, refuse, pets, fireworks. None of, and keep or remove any of them. Signs, special events, RVs, attics can't be used for occupancy, zoning compliance, and illegal activities. Then the last section, section 7, talks about how, it's not the last, but it talks about violations and penalties and what happens if this is violated, and then section 8 is the enforcement.
Okay, but how would we enforce it? Since we don't have policing.
Zoning administrator,
You
yeah.
could do
It
the
all
zoning
depends how you want it.
administrator. Do you,
According to
you
enforcement,
could do,
it states that the board in this township can either A, give authority to Sam, or B, I've been looking into this, it would go to the zoning administrator. And since we don't have a constable, and we do pay for the sheriff would be the ultimate person dispatched to enforce if it's something that we have tried to reckon with.
So that's just like any other instance.
Well,
Do a citation, sheriff has to enforce it.
so on the
You
zoning
don't
administrator,
have to do a citation though in this case, because the sheriff knows what the ordinance was, and that's how that would be enforced.
so on the zoning administrator's duties, it says that he is responsible, let me finish the whole thing. So he is responsible for enforcement of zoning violations. That he can do it himself and/or appoint somebody to do it for him if he does not want to go do that, is what it says for the zoning administrator's job. I didn't read any part in there where it said the supervisor can do that. It just says the zoning administrator can enforce it by one of two ways, either himself or he appoints somebody else to do it because he doesn't want to go get people upset. That's what I read.
I've been looking into it due to the questionableness of taking 6 months to get a citation delivered for multiple reasons. And that's where the Board of Trustees can assign point specific who will. We currently have a supervisor who is the one that writes the citations, even though, no, that's fact, that's not fiction.
Okay, I'm just listening.
He writes the citations, but we had to get our citations so that they're even legal, because they weren't legal.
But why isn't the zoning administrator writing the citations as himself?
I would say that would be a question. If I were you, I would deliver that to our township supervisor.
Is all this process documented someplace? That it goes through these steps in order to do this?
I have been looking it up, and yes, I have a piece to come back what I just said.
Oh, I'd like a copy.
Yes, the only thing I've seen so far as that goes is just zoning administrator, his duties, he can do them or he can appoint somebody. It doesn't say anything else about the board. That's why I was asking.
Well, and that's why most townships originally had constables, because the zoning.
I know that, we had one in office.
Yeah,
I'm
but
familiar
our
with that.
township did away with that several years ago.
Got it.
So,
So it said unless, if you can provide that with us with that other stuff, that would be great, because the only thing I see about zoning and enforcement is just what it says. The zoning administrator's duties are, enforcement is done by him, period.
That was
And
my
or,
understanding.
or somebody that he appoints to do that. It doesn't say anything about the board appointing that. That's the zoning administrator's job. So if there's something else that says that, I'd like to see that. Okay.
I will make sure and find a copy and send it to everybody, including Jennifer.
my suggestion is with this, I appreciate, this gives us a big, thing to like look at, is take the next month, right, all your questions, all your what ifs, what ands, and speculations of things that may be done, and we can put that on the agenda for next month. So,
You here next month?
so that gives us a bunch to look at. And it's easier to see, what are other people doing, does that suit what we want to do?
A lot of the question boils down to is who is going to do this,
The
who is
enforcement.
going to enforce it,
Right.
how much effort is this going to take, is the ordinance or the licensing process that you land on equivalent to the amount of effort that you want or are able to put into the process, because if you can't, then it's not enforceable.
Right.
So,
Yeah, 'cause it's a big thing, any of the rental, I'm familiar with a lot of, a lot of cities have rental programs that you have to sign up, Saginaw, Bay City, and a few other ones do, And some of those are kind of a joke per se, because it's just mainly, they get their money every couple of years, and the only thing that they go in and check is, do you have heat, is there peeling paint, do the ground fault receptacles work? Cool, give us our $200, that's pretty much what they do. So, if we're gonna do something, then, then it actually should have meaning to it, rather
If
than.
you're not
just
gonna
go-
enforce it, there's no reason to do it.
Exactly, yeah, and that was my question, 'cause the only thing I see as far as enforcement so far is just that the zoning administrator is in charge of enforcement of the ordinances, and if he doesn't wanna do it, he can appoint somebody. That's all I see, and we don't have, now I know that some of the other ones, if they can't make contact with the owner, then the sheriff does it, or one of the deputies, or whoever that serves the papers and stuff.
And some will specify that the owners have to live within so far distance, or they have to have a realtor within such a distance. so they
Property
can-
manager.
Property manager, yeah.
So they can be contacted.
Which in order to be a property manager in this state, you gotta be a real estate agent, so, and/or an assistant to one, so.
Question about, we have a couple already, well, Penix's for one, because they tell us that they have a rental. Now, would they have to, since they've already had it for many years, would they have to abide by them getting a license and everything?
That would be one of the things that we'd have to bring up. Are we gonna allow existing ones to keep
And I'm
on
not
doing
pick-
that?
And I'm not picking on Penix's, I'm
They
just,
are.
That's a lot of them.
Or does everybody have to?
Right.
Something already existed, and then
They're
a
illegal.
law was put into place.
yeah, as a grandfather,
I don't know, that's something that has to be hammered
Not
out.
zoned properly.
For what?
They have to be zone C1.
Yes.
Oh, got it. Oh, true. Oh, for short term. Perfect. Oh, yeah, there's the other thing we gotta look at too, so.
City of Bay City just passed an ordinance that, nothing other than commercial can be used for short-term rental.
And that'd be another thing we have to look at, where, in what zone are they gonna be allowed?
So this is just a general charge.
We are general law township, and that's why some townships, as they are charters, they have much more specific what is actually done as an incorporated governmental body.
Okay.
Because in all reality, this pretty much is about how it's functioning here. But the
These
authority does not
townships,
issue.
if I can, these townships all have deed restrictions. You know Dave Powers?
Mhm.
He's taken issue with two that are on our beach between Bartel and the end of the road. And he simply wrote the owner's a letter stating their violation of deed restrictions, he gave a copy of the deed restriction, and then politely told them to give him a call and tell him what they're gonna do about it. And the one next to me is shut down. It's gone long-term.
Oh,
He's in there for a year right now.
Oh, got it, right.
And now, but the other one, Dave says he wants to fight, and all it's gonna do is cost him a lot of money, because you're not.
Well, it is,
gonna
because that's a deed
You're
restriction.
not
It
gonna
doesn't
get
have
out of the
anything to do
deed
with us.
restriction.
Right.
You can't do a damn thing with it.
What's the one they consider long-term? Over a year?
Well,
One
this
one-
is a year.
1 to 9 years?
Yeah, this one, he had to sign up with the owner for a year.
About over 6 months was considered.
I don't know what,
That's what
well,
they
we don't,
they put on.
you'd have to put that in
So
there.
the Airbnbs and the free booths, that falls in the short term or no?
Yep.
Yeah,
Does that need to be all C1 zoning for that
It
to
would,
take place?
it would have to be, yes. And there are a bunch of them on Brissette Beach that are not. I don't know if that subdivision's down there or not. Do you know, Rick? But the whole
That
Linwood
one I
Beach,
don't know.
Linwood Beach has got about 6 different subdivisions.
Yeah, yeah, because I was in a different one also.
There's multiple lawsuits in the state right now, I know, about this
Short term.
issue.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are.
So I think Collins should follow some of that information, to make sure that whatever's being ironed out in the Supreme Court, I believe right now, we don't get ourselves into any issues.
Deep water.
Airbnbs are everywhere
Oh,
right
yeah,
now,
absolutely.
you know. And to make every Airbnb a C1 property,
Yeah, see, I don't know about the whole, make them into C1 because they're short term. If they want to have multiple buildings on a site, then you gotta be a C1, but the whole thing is making it, I don't agree with having to make them C1 if they're short term. I mean, that's just, that should be handled in ordinance wise as far as how we want to see the, would you slide that way? We're not gonna move, just like I'm looking at Ray, right? Thank you, that's good. Yeah, so, you're correct. Yeah, and I don't wanna. There, no,
they're so popular right now.
well, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I gotta, there's a bunch everywhere you go, there's pretty much one, so, which is fine. And if the communities wanna do something about it, then they do. It should be looked at and handled. But, there again, you have a piece of property and you got a right to do with it within certain guidelines, like anything else. So it's like, I
It
don't
shouldn't
want,
be taxed as a permanent site either.
pardon?
It shouldn't be taxed that way.
Correct.
They're renting their
Correct,
house
yeah,
out
if
for
it's not,
Airbnb.
yeah, it's not,
It
yeah.
should be, gotta be a different property, or don't
Because
tax.
if you want the, the resident exemption, you guys gotta be your 100% permanent
Right.
deal. If you got a family member or something staying there when you're gone, big deal, But, in order to get that, then you'd only have one. Then you should have to pay, a non-resident tax on that. But yeah, I mean, it's a big step. It's a huge amount of stuff to go through. So as I said, I wanted at least a basis and see what other people were doing. Look it over the next month, make all sorts of what ifs, ands on this and see if it's still worth what we want to do. Because I know the biggest thing got started because of the cabins down there,
I think the biggest thing I started because of
Oh, well, yeah.
out there,
Because of,
because that's where it first
The-
came to our knowledge, was the letter that, the lady wrote that lives out there. That's the first time I heard of it. And that
It's
was
that, and a lot of them already
Oh,
have
already?
deed restrictions, which take care of that for us anyway, so.
But it was still the first time that had come up that it needs to be addressed.
And that's what I was getting at before, because we went through that in Auburn. So many of our things were, this was done 40 years ago. Okay, well, that doesn't really apply on how things are being used today. We expanded, for instance, the square footage of property you can use for buildings, You had an older part of the town, which like Brissette, let's say, had smaller lots. Well, they got kind of hammered because they can't have as much on their property because of the smaller lot size. So we allowed them to go closer to the lot line